Welcome back to the HGC Western Clash at IEM Katowice in Poland. We are currently deadlocked 1-1 between Tempo Storm and Zealots, both fighting for a spot and a chance to win versus Team Dignitas in the grand finals. At least a play versus them. In Kaldor, all 1-1 tied up. We've seen Volskaya Foundry and Sky Temple now. What's left in the favored battlegrounds for Zealots?
I mean, one of the battlegrounds that I would still like to see again is Tomb of the Spider Queen. We have seen very little of it, so that would be pretty cool. Cursed Hollow is another one that I could see, and Infernal Shrines. Those three would probably be my preferred ones for the rest of the series. Since I think we can all agree we want to have a 5-mapper here.
Yeah. What about you, Mike? Do you feel like there's any particular place that Tempo Storm would take us should Zealots pick first pick?
I mean, it's interesting that Kaldor mentioned the Tomb of the Spider Queen, because I actually personally feel like that's one of Tempo Storm's better maps.
All right.
And granted, it is versus an EU team, so they are really strong on that battleground. But, you know, I would like to see it maybe picked out from Tempo. I mean, if there is a best of 5, I feel like there's a strong chance that we will get Tomb at some point, which makes me really excited because I haven't been able to analyze a Tomb game at all this entire, Western Clash.
Yeah, and as one of the best Tomb teams in North America, I feel it would be a lot of fun to get your insight from a Gale Force Esports perspective, as we are awaiting that next choice. It's Zealots with the first pick or the battleground choice here. We've gone to Volskaya Foundry and Sky. Battlefield of Eternity being banned out. That is a place that Zealots have chosen before. Tempo Storm, unfortunately, not able to choose Dragonshire. Do you have a point?
Yeah, on the side of the Zealots, it's actually very tricky when you try to go for the map, for the battleground, because in the regular season, they didn't have a lot of maps with a positive win rate. And how could I forget about Towers of Doom? This has been the most played map of the entire tournament, played in actually every single series. So we haven't seen it yet in this one, and now in Game 3, we're going to see one of the teams pull ahead.
I like Towers of Doom. I feel like it can favor both teams equally. And yeah, I just found it really interesting. We were just saying the other day, we're like, wow, Towers of Doom, we're seeing so much of that play. And I feel like teams, they're liking the rotations that come out of this. They're liking the fights. It's almost like that Dragonshire where you're balancing both. And it's almost become like the new Cursed Hollow in a way.
Well, as we are deadlocked in the series, it seems like that might be the case with chat too. I just get this feeling. And since I think that that is the case, given that game 1, the votes dominantly in Tempo's fashion, and then it swung the other way after Zealots won game 1 in pretty convincing fashion. Actually, after level 13 fight, make sure you're voting for who you want to win, who you think is gonna win. Cast your vote and we'll check in for that before the game 3 goes live on Towers of Doom. Towers of Doom, there's a lot of picks here for ADRD that seem very good, Mike.
I mean, the biggest thing I want to see is, does Zealots just look for that high Blaze Stukov again, right? I mean, because Tempo has showed, a response that worked really well in that last game. I feel like that was a very dominant win coming out for the side of Tempo Storm. So Zealots feel like Dehaka was one of the biggest issues in that last job. Played, I feel like this entire turn we have harped on how well Glorong has played on that hero. Like, exceptional, Kaldor.
Insanely well.
Exactly. Like, he always hits those tongues on the isolations, and he has disrupted, especially around Tyrael plays, so many sanctifications, game-winning ones that it's very smart ban. I feel it really, I mean, it's very understandable why you would try to push him away from the hero. He has a huge impact on other heroes as well. We've seen his Zeratul, his Malthael, but I feel the Dehaka is just such a frustrating tool to play against when you try to execute a combo, and Zealots just want to make sure that they have an easier way to pull those off.
I wonder if this is going to be a Glorong choke coming out for the side of Zealots. All right, so bear with me. So what if they first pick the Blaze, so they ban the Dehaka, and then after that they ban the Malthael. So Glorong at that point, like his 2 most comfortable, in my opinion, solo laners at that point would be either Zeratul or Ragnaros. Like he is very much a melee style player where he loves those melee assassins. He's not as much of, a Wubby where he loves playing tanks. I mean, I feel like Wubby is such a good tank player, but Zealots do go for that Tyrael.
They finally prioritized. It's very interesting as well because, I mean, I was saying a lot of what I was seeing out of Zealots was prioritizing that Blaze, but we saw last game that was not the case. I feel like the Tyrael now is what's really hampering them, and as well as by taking away that Dehaka, we saw how much value Glorong was getting on it. And I feel like with this now, it sets Zealots up in a good fashion. It's not giving away too much of the direction that they want to swing with their draft, but it's interesting that point that you bring out, Mike. Do they want to now sort of starve Glorong and then force him onto something squishier with that Zeratul, with that Ragnaros?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an option. I would be very surprised if Tempo Storm doesn't pick Blaze here. They also have been favoring that Genji, so I feel like Blaze... Oh, Tracer, that hero did sneak through draft. So is it Tracer Malf or is it Tracer Blaze? That is what I am curious to see. Calder, what do you think? Which one?
I mean, normally you want to have the Malfurion, but they had so much trouble going up against the Tyrael Blaze composition. And they go for Abathur instead, so leaving Malfurion open and Blaze as well. I mean, this is the first time in this series that Zealots are in the first pick position. So the first shot that they have at Tyrael since Tempo has been first picking him twice. But now they can, if they believe it's strong enough, go again into Blaze for the off lane and then have during the fight Sanctification and Bunker available, which would also really help a lot against Tracer.
Well, and I think part of why the Abathur was picked up there in the 1-2 for Tempo Storm is Zealots could have responded with, Abathur of their own, but Abathur Genji. That is a very scary 2-3, especially into someone like Tracer that has that low health pool. Double E coming in from Genji would be a terrifying prospect for Fan on that Tracer.
And now they do pick up that Blaze and Greymane, but also just a point that I wanted to bring. I like that Tempo Storm is starving Zealots a little bit of those high impact heroes. We were talking about how it's very hard to derail them off the draft just because of what they're sort of drafting. But in terms of just the impact, the Tracer, the Abathur, these are high impact heroes that you're taking away. And we know that Tempo Storm can play these quite well. Fan very comfortable on that Tracer. So I really like the direction that Tempo Storm is taking as well.
Next ban for Tempo Storm. I wondered if this was going to be the case. The Abathur not only takes away from the Abathur Greymane, Abathur Genji pairing that might have been there for Zealots, but it also is limiting those high impact heroes for ADRD, now with the Medivh ban too.
Yeah, so it looks like they are going to go for that Glarong choke. But that being said, with the Abathur pickup, I do like the Zeratul a little bit more. It does counter the Tyrael Sanctification where you use the VP on it. But here's the thing. Zealots leading into this series showed how proficient they are with that Tyrael Blaze. And they've got it again. I mean, this is the first time Tempo will, because in the first game, they took away the Tyrael, right? They never gave them that duo. So is Zealots going to be able to play at that high level that they were before with that duo?
They also have Greymane with this setup, and I mentioned this specifically because when we were talking about Chris, he's extremely strong on that hero because he plays so safe. He's not one of the Greymanes that overextends and now in melee form just goes into deep. And if you have Tyrael next to you plus Blaze with the Bunker as well, it's very difficult to immediately burn him down. Tempo Storm might try and do that with the Tracer Abathur combo, focusing Greymane, but we haven't even seen the support yet. So as long as they can keep the attention or the damage output on Chris, it should be fine. I'm really liking Zealot's draft so far, even though Tempo Storm looks scary with that opening.
You literally took the point that I wanted to make, Calder, and you said it so very well. Chris, anytime that Tracer is taken away from him, he's happy to default onto that Greymane. He picks up the Quicksilver bullets at level 7, and he likes to stay clear of a poke from a range. Just make sure that he's not going to get isolated by her. And that's just fantastic to see. And I mean, that's kind of what we're seeing about Zealots. They're happy to make substitutions where needed.
Arthur's again being picked up for Tempo Storm, and Kettle really loves this Arthur's play. I mean, it is by now the preferred tank on the side of Tempo Storm by far. Malfurion, I really like June's Malfurion. He has had a lot of very, very nice Twilight Dreams. But Zealots have a really good draft for themselves here. I really like what I'm seeing on the left side. I'm wondering a bit how they're rounding this out, especially if they're going into Stukov again for Shad, or if they this time change things up a bit, which they definitely could. I mean, we have Rhaegar still available, Uther still out there. You have a lot of tools that you can use for Greymane, and that's exactly what they do. They get Uther, they have the Divine Shield available for Greymane, and now with Genji as a pickup, we have also a second target for it.
Yeah, I just really want to see if this is going to be the Zeratul coming out for Tempo Storm. I mean, what other pick would it be? Maybe a Leoric, but that falls into, I don't feel like that for Glau, that is a comfort, right? I feel like he would much rather play a Zeratul versus that Leoric.
Glau played Arthas in the first game of this series, right?
That is a really good point.
Cattle could be on a different tank, and then you put Glau on the Arthas. It almost feels like Tempo Storm are starting to adjust to the European meta just in having a double tank, trying to have this tankier setup. And it's a good, I really like how this shifted out because actually it's also another clone target.
You know, that's actually such a good catch. And they do really like that Arthas versus Blaze match. I mean, I feel like that's why they have constantly been picking it, is they want to throw that Arthas. For them, it's a favorite matchup, the Arthas versus the Blaze. That such a good catch. I didn't even think of that. Like, I really am so curious if they do pick another tank, what would it be? I mean, someone like Murden is pretty beefy. EGC is still available. Garrosh, okay. Cattle says, Mopsio, you gotta play a fun hero. It's my turn. I gotta play Garrosh. I gotta play the War Chief. So I like it. I feel like Garrosh, into so many melee heroes, right? Genji, Greymane, those are backliners that generally are wanting to dive, right? That taunt is so impactful. If you get a Genji out of position with taunt, that is a terrifying situation. You know,
as you mentioned, Mirrodin is actually really interesting because he has not been played a lot here. He was super popular in Europe, but we have seen him only 4 times in the tournament, which is kind of crazy since he was one of the most popular tanks in the European League.
Vandy, do you think that this Garrosh has caught Mopsio and the rest of Zealots off guard at all?
I don't think it would have caught them off guard, but definitely this is a pick that I like to say it's a strong pick. They will know how to play around it because they play a lot of it themselves.
That's true.
But in saying that, it just gives Tempo Storm so much more of that wombo setup that we love to see. And I'm expecting them. We're talking about high impact heroes, and Tempo Storm, they've drafted such a great roster for that.
You know what I like is into the fray, putting Arthas exactly where he wants to be in a team comp. Or a team fight.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, Gloron, get in there. Come on, man. You got people to kill. Yeah, I mean, I think the Garrosh pick is pretty good. Was that a segue into the prediction?
It is now, my friend.
Okay, I'm gonna give it hurts my heart. I'm gonna give it to Zealots. I feel like that Blaze Tyrael is just such a strong duo. And in the last series, Zealots played so well around it that, you know, I want to see Tempo win, right? Like, my heart is rooting for them, but I feel like Zealots is just too strong with that duo.
Your heart and your team, as you would love to have the extra chance of going to the midseason brawl. Vandy, what's your prediction?
I feel like everyone's just going to be like, no, Vandy only likes European teams now. I feel like you brought me to the dark side. But no, I've seen Zealots do so well in the past with this draft, and that's enough for me to back them with my prediction. Yes, they didn't get exactly what they wanted, but I've seen this draft in particular succeed on Towers of the Doom in the past, and that's why I'm going to go for Zealots.
I was very skeptical of their draft on the last map, and I said so, voted for Tempo. I think this time they brought it back, and Zealots is going to take the 2-1 lead.
It's really hard for me to make a prediction here because I think both teams drafted extremely well here. So I'm just going to vote for Tempo Storm and leave it at that. But let's check in with chat. I told you needed to make sure you voted, and I hope you did, because I want to see a closer vote. Yes!
Oh, wow.
So proud of you guys. Keep that up. Keep cheering for your favorite team in this series, because the winner of this series goes on to the grand finals. Over to you, Jay Howe and Dreadnought, for game 3.
Dread Tempo Storm brought out the death ball. This time they're bringing out the Abathur Tracer. You think it's going to be enough?
I feel like compositionally I want to say yes, but when it comes to does it play to Tempo Storm's strengths, you know, adapting a bit more of the European playstyle, it makes me a little bit more hesitant.
Makes me a little bit more hesitant as well, but what doesn't make me hesitant is the Zealots draft, as Mopsio is going to be on Tyrael, Zarmany on Blaze, Chris on Greymane, ADRD on the rare Genji, and Shad on Uther.
They were able to tie it up there on Sky Temple, and now looking to gain a lead. It is Tempo Storm in red, Psalm on Tracer, Fan on the Abathur, Arthas played by Glorong, June on Malfurion, and the Garrosh is going to be Caterpillar.
You know, one thing that we're seeing is a wide variety of builds from Garrosh, and this is something we haven't seen since some of the Garrosh changes, is the unrivaled strength, getting that extra throw range, maybe trying to isolate a target. There's an isolation as the roots go down. Mopsio, he's going to be fine. They're re-engaged by Zarmany. But I think that is going to be a lot of what Tempo Storm wants to accomplish.
Yeah, trying to get the isolation, make sure that they get the kill. They're probably with the pulse bomb onto that target. If not, then utilizing the, you know, gap closing attempts by Zealots, dive onto the backline and get that kill. It's going to be interesting to see how effective we see this Garrosh Abathur, because the comfortability of those two heroes for Zealots, right? That is one of the most prominent picks for them in this game. Glorong getting caught out on top, all the Zealots making the rotation upward. There's no way he's going to survive here. This is first blood over to Zealots, and do they lose anything elsewhere? Because that was, you know, a slow game. We saw that in the last game where Zealots was able to get something elsewhere on the map, but Tempo doesn't look like that's the case, understandably so. Abathur comps with Tracers, not like they're good in the siege department.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. The point that you made last game is conversely here on the other game where you can't do anything with it. The camps aren't up until 1 minute. That was about 45 seconds.
Found the Abathur. Oh my goodness.
Oh, leaving with the spray.
Got him.
Oh. Do you think that's a...
I don't know, but I am going to say, for anybody who wondered, what was the thought process there by ADRD? Obviously, he felt confident with the deflect. He would get enough damage to make sure to get the reset. He swift struck in, and if he had ended up getting the kill, he could have double swift struck, made it out, and survived. Obviously not getting the reset, and the response there from Fan. I can't help but wonder, was that a bit of a bait?
Look, my favorite part about this is that ADRD is the Abathur player. He is the specialist. He is the man who knows the vulnerabilities of an Abathur composition. I think he might have just overestimated a little. I mean, look, it's level 2, and I got really excited for that, but gosh dang, just the fact that it's 80RD trying to make that play happen on a Genji, what is this world?
Especially because he's been caught out on past that wall quite frequently through this tournament, so like trying to get the response punishment when he finds the Abathur on the other side. I agree with you, it's very, very cool. I like the fact that we saw Mopsio actually getting the flank there, trying to cut off the choke. Not only is he going to be anchoring, but if anybody overextends, makes a poor rotation, maybe get a positive trade for himself. Pulse Bomb dropped onto Chris, but it's just gonna be a poke for now.
That's one thing that Uther is going to really challenge is those pulse bombs going out. And sometimes early game, you'll see players, they'll go in, they'll get that going. Nice. Shad.
Gets flipped over, he has armor.
Ooh, I bet he wish he had that pulse bomb there.
I really want to highlight the rotation that Mopsio just made there. He was very understanding of the choke and that they were going to try and get a kill in that area, and they immediately just feign a rotation and then collapse down. Pretty just heads up showing the understanding of like the Garrosh and the mentality that they're going to see on Tempo Storm and trying to capitalize on. If that continues, much like we saw with the Abathur matchup, it might be punishment. Look at this, catching out Cattle for now, enough armor to keep him alive. Psalm looking to join in. 3 altars up here, up in 2 seconds.
Psalm definitely trying to bring it in there. You see the Groundbreaker going out by Cattle. You know, we're seeing another little bit of a change up. You know, you lack a little bit of damage, Dread, when you have this composition double warrior with an Abathur Tracer. We actually see Glaurung going Icy Talons at level 4, meaning that when he has those, because Blaze is going to be right up in front of you, every time you get that, you get the attack speed for 1.5 seconds every time a hero is damaged by Frozen Tempest. And when Blaze is up there, he is permanently up there. So look for Glaurung to try and return some of that punishment.
We saw the top left captured by Zealots. Tempo Storm was able to secure the middle, and Zealots rotated to get both Genji and Blaze towards the top lane to get a lot of pressure, and it cost them essentially that bottom altar, but you could see the mentality was with the intent to be aggressive enough on the top half to maybe poke around, get that for themselves. Tempo Storm did a very good job, though, of making sure that didn't happen, and now they're going to back out. But look for these sappers. So far, Zealots, they're in an interesting position because normally you want to see them be aggressive into that Abathur playstyle, but the Garrosh and some of the threat that has been able to provide here, and you know, at least the armor situation and the threat of the flip is making them kind of slow their pace a little bit.
Slow it down for sure. You know, one thing that Garrosh kind of does, it means that it's hard to invade camps because you got to worry about being flipped over at any given time.
Yeah.
So Cattle, he gets the slow, he gets the throw back, but the root's just a little bit short, and Pulse Bomb's missing as well here, Dread.
Yeah, it was a prediction there, I think, onto the Druid attempt, but not going to be taken right away. Shad, or excuse me, 80RD, he's going to flip over, but he's speaking about flip. Mopsio is going to be flipped on to Tempo Storm. He's going to go and use his passive here, getting a bit of value, helping out Tempo Storm with the Sapper Camp.
Not intended value, but double the value for Tempo Storm. And, you know, looking at that, you saw the root placement. And I think one of the things that's interesting about that is that normally you're very familiar and very adept at playing with
I have so much, yeah.
And then the level 1 talent change threw him a little bit further than June anticipated, so.
It's one of the situations where I would argue against, like, for instance, anybody who was a part of the old school Diablo Toronto meta definitely understood this. With the gap closing distance and increased range on Diablo and the opportunity to kind of initiate, it made it very difficult to understand the distance or where you set that Lunar Flare to make the mark end up landing. And if you get any talent that increases the setup, then the follow-up has to always be able to match that. But mentally, that's actually very difficult to be able to consistently go, no, this Garrosh game is here, this Garrosh game is there. As the guy who threw down the roots a lot, it is actually very difficult. And so I think that's a really good point you bring up there, that we see June twice putting it forward. That being said, I think it's been too far forward in both cases, but it's something that I would like to see them fix, and it's very, very difficult, especially with the Tempo Storm pressure after, you know, that they have on their shoulders here, already dropping a game to Zealots.
See if they clean that up just a little bit. As you can see, the roots just kind of zoning out, making sure Chris can't dive in here. Chris changing up his build a little bit, going up against Tracer, not going to Wisdom Duelist, instead getting that extra human attack range. As Psalm, he's got to use that recall, but that is not in a good spot as 80RD forced that out. That gets the death there onto Psalm's Tracer.
Yeah, and that is just, it could not be, you know, worst case, or it could not be worse really when it comes to the timing of that death, because the Tracer composition were doing pretty well, you know, not wanting to fall behind into the earlier stages, because, I mean, you have an Abathur on your side. If you can hold your own for long periods of time, you know you can deal with those later stages. And so the fact that that happened right as the double altars up, it's very probable, as we see both altars now getting picked up, that they get them. And it's just, you never want to forfeit any of those shots for free in that type of situation. You can appreciate the playmaking attempt, but Zealots is there to punish.
Dread, I've had Towers of Doom. We've had it just over a couple years, I think, and I still do not know how I feel about Mule on this map. Competitive.
Oh, you know what? I feel the same way. About Mule on almost every map is actually how, I don't know how I feel about Mule. I love the little guy. He comes down, he heals out my structures, but it is interesting. Do you want to put focus on making sure constantly trying to like keep your side alive and play that slow play, or do you want to make sure you win, you know, more into like, I, for instance, enjoy team fight oriented build, going with that stab damage?
We'll see how it plays out. Garrosh getting the toss, but the little guy comes back in there, does the destructive damage. Now we've got level 10 picked up for both teams. Nothing out of the ordinary. Do you have go for the throat? No cursed bullet to try and rip through that Garrosh health bar. Remember that armor, every time he loses health, he gains armor equivalently, and sometimes we'll see cursed bullet try and rip through that since it does not negate percentage-based damage.
After Tempo Storm picks up the Sappers, Glorung actually getting body blocked, already have to use Army of the Dead. Chris went into Worgen form, Howling Blast in response. Shad gets flipped.
Shad gets flipped. He's in the bad side. Twilight Dream hits multiple. Groundbreaker's gonna knock him up. That's gonna be Shad going down.
Taunt is there, used onto Mopsio. Pulse Bomb dropped. He's getting the heals and the armor there from Shad in that ghost form, uses the Veil. Drew and Chris goes in trying to get an answer. Disengage up in about 0.5, but the knock-up, uses Eyes in the Dark, able to make it out. Only one kill there. That was very sketchy for a moment there on Zealot's side. Very
lucky to get out of there alive. No Uther for 2 seconds. This looks like it might be a free trade, but Mopsio does have his Aldruins. He might try for one, but Cattle's gonna toss him out. ADRD, he's pretty sneaky there on Genji.
But he does have to deal with Cattle with that Abathur hat. June moves up, throws down a Moonfire, and that is now 4 shots sent over to the core of Zealots, now residing dead even, 28-28.
So far, so good for Tempo Storm, but things will open up as this bottom lane starts to weaken, and it's weakened a little bit on both sides thus far. Zealots a little bit behind. Remember, we do have the Mule in place for Abathur, so if they do take a bit of damage, they'll find ways to heal it back up. We'll see if that does have an impact on this bottom lane, which is such a heavy priority in competitive.
It is one of those situations that it's not like Zealots has an overly, you know, macro-oriented composition outside of debatably the Blaze. So I do feel like that Mule is gaining a decent amount of value for Tempo Storm, that having the opportunity to heal up those front walls and make sure that, because they don't have enough macro to all in for at any point in time, it's going to be whittling away. It does feel like our little healing robot here is going to get more for Tempo Storm than normal. Tempo, though, with the 13 closing for Zealots pretty quickly here. Normally, you'd like to see them try and maybe look for a pressure.
He's going back on
Genji's
Abathur.
going. Oh, the slug makes it out. That was very, very close. ADRD getting aggressive once more, but not going to go down this time. Tempo Storm trying to get punishment. Flip onto Mopsio.
Mopsio, he gets rooted, he gets taunted. Twilight Dream is going to be there as well, but the amount of armor coming out here from Shad's going to keep him alive. Pulse Bomb not enough to finish the kill.
This is all Guardian of the Ancient King.
Yeah.
I want to bring up, we were talking about the synergy of the fall of the root. I don't want to see it. Drop it. Do not use it. Actually try it. If Mopsio is going to be the target, do not get the root immediately after. Do not allow Guardian of the Ancient King to keep him alive, because you can do that with a Genji, you could do that to any of the squishies, but if you're going to put it on Tyrael, it really is just losing so many of your cooldowns that, generally speaking, that's going to allow for a counter initiation as this game moves forward. So Tempo Storm, maybe, at least if that's not the case, just looking and keeping that Guardian of the Ancient King in mind, because every time it hits on Mopsio, you see him gain value, Shad drops the heal, and things look, you know, temporarily sketchy for Tempo. Big groundbreaker there for a moment.
They're going in. All of a sudden, Glaurung is the primary target, gets absolutely deleted. Cattle gets the taunt, the toss, the stun, but Divine Shield's going to keep him alive. And ADRD starting to go off here with Dragon Blade as Garrosh and Arthas both go down. The entire front line decimated here on the side of Tempo Storm.
Great use of the bunker there, too, to make sure no, you know, mobility deterred from the map of, or from that fort on bottom, slowing them down. They can dive right past. And that team fight was, I mean, just very quick there for Zealots. There was almost no response from Tempo Storm, unable to even drop a clone, try and get that force onto the fight.
There was a point you made a couple minutes ago
about
how Blaze was just kind of softly soaking those lanes. And there was a 4-man push from Tempo Storm to try and find an opportunity in that bottom lane. And they neglected a lot of experience. And I think that right there kind of set them back, because 13 was obtained by Zealots. That's why we had the free channel. And Tempo Storm put themselves in an awkward position. You expect Abathur to try and get double lane soak, but your clear is a little bit slower. We also saw the clone that was forced out. So you were missing experience in top and bottom. And so it kind of put them back behind a little bit of experience-wise. And what was a little bit of experience, all of a sudden is a level and a half lead here for Zealots.
They do have the bottom bell tower into their favor and those sappers pressuring up too. This now is going to draw and demand some of the aggro of the members of Tempo Storm, while Blaze is doing his best to further the race here towards 16 talent here. I don't want to say it's for sure, but it's definitely realistic for Zealots to be able to stall this out, wait out for the 16 for one of those top altar fights, unless Abathur gets kind of a cheeky backdoor.
Yeah, because the thing is that Blaze, Zarmany can just run over there and interrupt. He has very good poke potential when it comes to these altars, and see how that plays out. It looks like they're going to play it safe. Without 16 just enough. You know, also I'm looking over there at Uther going Spell Shield, making sure that if he doesn't have that armor to spread around on himself, he can just pop Spell Shield, and that is strictly used for Pulse Bomb.
Normally, in this type of situation, I would really like to see, you know, the Tyrael make the rotation, try and Druins kind of threaten it out. But we have to keep in mind, Tempo Storm has a Garrosh, and it's very, very hard to want to move up and try and get the stall. You've seen every single time Mopsio does it, he threatens his own life. If Shad's not there with the Guardian and Ancient King, it can put you into a poor position. So I appreciate some of the patience here from Zealots, maybe, compared to other moments where we see patience from both of these teams.
Patience has netted Zealots an 11 core health lead, as that last phase they had 5 shots going in their favor, getting 10 shots to the 3 of Tempo Storm. We're going to have a double altar phase coming up next. We've got a clone into the phrase coming out.
Shad is under a lot of pressure and going to use the armor, get Guardian Ancient King value. Psalm is going to eat a Dragon Blade /1. Twilight Dreams use onto Genji. Greyman gets the Divine Shield. He's going to be fine. Shad keeps himself alive, and they already get the pick onto Tracer. June so very low, and he's next to drop another reset here for ADRD.
The resets are there and unable to confirm any of those kills as Tempo Storm. Glaurung, he's trying to walk away, trying to get out alive, but the rest... Trait value? I don't... Cattle!
5 kills. Well, excuse me, 4 there. I forgot we dropped a clone. And Uther. Zealots just dominated that team fight, and Zarmany was not there for a large majority. Tempo Storm very much was comfortable trying to take that fight, get the initiation, but he didn't...
Dread, double altar and boss is game here.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I just looked at the map, and I'm like, double altar boss is game here. They're going to do one, they'll be able to drop back, do the other, and they'll be able to contest the top right altar.
But this isn't a position, yeah, exactly. There is a position for Tempo Storm still to be able to hold off. This is slow enough here to where the death timers are going to allow for a rotation over. It's a very risky stall. Tracer and Malfurion are in position now. Abathur clone's not up for 14, Twilight Dream for 20. They want to try and get that stall out. There's no way Zealots do not try and get aggressive here.
Everybody's now up. Abathur is not going to have enough damage to soak that. Yeah, I think Mopsio, it looks like Tempo Storm is going to hold for now, Dread.
They are going to be able to hold it off there. I thought we would see Zarmany, or excuse me, Zealots get a little bit more aggressive. Now talking about Zarmany, actually using his bunker, just going to stop the advance of Tempo Storm there. But that is one of those moments where we have to ask ourselves, what is one of the only fights you can lose this game? And I can't help but feel like that, yes, that is one. Again, I feel like it was realistic that Zealots do try and make that play and try and get that stall. But when you have 22-5, do you really need to kind of take that risky fight past them?
Let's look long term as well. You've got both Uther and Tyrael.
Oh. Yeah, and then we can just force our channel no matter what. As long as we
literally do both.
You legit.
You can sync.
Yep.
I'm gonna wait. You take a few seconds. Here's a D shield. Now it's a tough situation. So for Tempo Storm, getting that bottom bell tower is very important. But long term,
I mean,
Tempo cannot let off the gas at all.
They can't lose a bell tower.
Because
they lose the game. They lose the game if they lose a bell tower. It's pretty much what it comes down to, as long as the altar is going to spawn, because there is no answer. There is no response. It's not like this is a, will you outplay it? The answer is no, they are untargetable. This is their shots.
Literally untargetable. Between Divine Shield and Sanctification, it is impossible.
Converted. It will be matched, though, by Tempo Storm.
I love this, strictly due to the fact that it's single altar phase in the bottom lane. And generally controlling this bottom lane, if it's bottom or bottom 2, you have the high ground, so to speak. I mean, thinking about prequels out there, having the high ground is always an advantage.
I can't even with you right now.
I know you love it.
I don't have words.
You don't have the high ground.
Top bell tower is converted. It's dead even. This is a very strong position for this altar now. Because of that choke, we talked about the advancement has to be very, very slow for Zealots, and it's going to stop them from getting aggressive. We do see someone make the transition towards mid as Malfurion's displayed himself.
Mal's always bottom though.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that was very ambitious. The fact that Tempo is looking to, kind of posture up here to Zealots as they know very much that Malfurion's nowhere to be found, but it's not going to cost them anything yet. Tempo Storm trying to get very desperate because that 20 is just around the corner. They do have the Abathur to try and balance things out, but this is a deficit that is, is not where you're going to be like, here's my double soak where my Abathur's going to be able to keep me into this game.
Well, the best part is that they do have that Abathur. The problem is 20 quickly approaching for Zealots. Generally, you can use your 4-man composition to hold this bottom lane while Abathur just double soaks mid and bot over and over, and thus crippling anything that Zealots can do to grab this. But the minute 20 hits, the next minion wave, Zealots might try and dive under this. They don't have to though, Dre.
Remember when we asked, is Mule, kind of worth it? When your bell towers are the only thing stopping you from getting all into this game, I can't help but feel like the answer is yes. Our little healing buddy, he's doing his best to make sure that the blaze trickling, damage is not getting anywhere. I watched him immediately dropping it on mid, just going, these are going to be maximum. It's going to be as difficult as possible to gain a bell tower advantage and allow the all in. Uther's still not going to pick up the 20. And again, that's relevant to this all-in play that we're talking about. Getting the increased duration at 20 on the Divine Shield aids with the probability of getting
They've got to get this down. They have to get that down, and they also have to defend bottom. They have that magic number 5 in terms of those core shots. They see that honestly, Tracer is top.
I'd rather Tracer come down for this fight. I feel like that's more realistic than maybe taking this race unless she can get it within the 10-second window. The answer is it's not going to be the case, and now she makes the rotation down. Zarmady out too far. That's a bunker. That's a big cooldown. Tempo Storm, now they get aggressive.
We're at 5 seconds, though. 5 seconds. They got the taunt out, but they didn't get anybody. You can see Chris already on the backside.
Chris is going to start.
He's starting it. That's it. There's the D-Shield.
Will they get there? I don't think it is. I think it was timed perfectly. That's it. Game over. Invulnerability here from Zealots is going to be the tools that they rely on to take a lead over Tempo Storm. That was so well done from Zealots, all starting with that top situation where we're questioning, like, is that worth the risk? And it's like, well, you have such a big enough lead. Why not wait for the 20? It is, in theory, the safest play. It's unstoppable as long as you do not make it miss time.
It's kind of crazy the way that works, but the long-term thinking of ADRDN team, they understood their win condition. They got that bell tower, put them closer to 20, and the threat of 20 just forced them out. And Tempo Storm said they couldn't let their foot off the gas, and right there, level 20 caused them to ease up. And the minute they eased up, they weren't able to come back into that and just got choked out by the invulnerability.
Tempo Storm, when we looked at the Sky Temple game, we kind of talked about this might be the one that they have to stand a chance in this series. I don't look at this game and go, that was such a, devastating one that is going to be struggling. Your tournament of life on the line is always going to add pressure and make things more difficult, but I can't help but feel like you look at that and you go, you know what, we did pretty well for the most part. We can probably hold our own going into the next one. So I'm at least remaining hopeful that the mentality is still going to remain strong for Tempo.
I think draft-wise, it obviously looked different because we are on Towers of Doom, so things are a little bit different here. I think that maybe getting to another map, they're able to go back more into their key parts of what kind of makes them function as they did in Game 2. I doubt they're going to get a similar draft ever again in this series, so we'll see. But first, we're going to head back over to Gillyweed and team at the panel to hear what they have to say.
The crowd cheering for the home team as Zealot steps one game closer to taking out Tempo Storm in the rematch that sent them down to the lower bracket in the first place, Kaldor.
Sorry, I didn't understand that acoustically.
Zealots lost the first match of the tournament to Tempo Storm, and now they have just about have the rematch in the bag.
Yeah, so if this was a best of 3 series, it would already be over, but it is a best of 5, so there's definitely a chance for Tempo Storm to come back into it. And it has been a close series on every single map that we've seen, maybe with the exception of the second, where Tempo dominated. But I would not count Tempo Storm out. This is still up for grabs, but Zealots have taken a massive step towards a victory in the best of 5.
Well, Mike, here you've got something to show us.
Yeah, so the replay I'm about to show you guys is just purely macro. So can you just pause it right here? There's no kills. It's not going to be flashy, but you're going to learn something, and that is what is important. So right now, there's going to be like a next level mind game going on with Zealots. So look at this number right here, 15. What is after 15? 16. And the XP bar is really close. So what Zealots is actually going to do, so it's a triple altar spap, right? So generally what you're going to end up seeing is a fight over one, right? Either like the top left or bottom. But Tempo doesn't really want to fight. Like the shot calling from their team is going to be, okay, we just want one, we just generally trade. So what Zealot does is these 3 heroes invade Tempo's pumpkin sappers. Go play it slowly. Because I love this decision coming from Zealots. So basically they're feigning, right? All Cattle has to do is walk into that top left sapper or just stall Zarmany a little bit, right? You look on the pause right here. So there's 4 people for Tempo on the top side of the map, right? So if they had full vision, they would 100% go chase that Blaze, but just really smart, next level mind games coming out by Zealots, just having those 3 heroes stay down there and just take out the pumpkin sappers, knowing that Tempo Storm isn't going to contest that 16. I just thought it was a really cool play because that is a very, confident call, right? Because if Zarmany gets checked, he could just die and that could be a turning point, but a very smart decision coming out from them to basically say, we know you guys aren't going to break the basic rules of HOTS. You don't fight without, your 16 talent tier. We know that, so we're going to, just maximize whatever we can get. We're going to take your pumpkin sappers when you don't expect it.
Well, Vandy, the drafting from Tempo Storm we saw focus on ADRD, as a lot of teams have done, trying to ban out the Medivh, getting the Abathur. In this case, though, it just didn't quite work out for them.
It didn't. Like I said, it was a really nice direction that Tempo Storm were doing. They got picks that they could utilize themselves. But then what we saw is, as I said, I'd seen Zealots play this very, very similar draft, very, very similarly executed. And then at the end of the day, like I said, yeah, they had to adjust it a little bit. We didn't see the Stukov like we normally did. But I guess the strategy was still there. And that's why they really did come ahead in this game.
Next up, as we get a 5th cast member momentarily, is the next battleground. And it's do or die now for Tempo Storm.